Namaste. Welcome to Satsang this evening. So this evening, at least here in the UK, I just wanted to dive into some of the questions that have been sent in. There's some amazing questions that are coming in. So I'll make a start on those. I'll read a couple of these, we'll answer them, and then I'll open it up here to see if anybody wants to ask anything live here on this session today. So this first one sent in says, Dear Helen, thank you for all your teachings and for shining a light so clearly for us to follow. My question is about long-time experience of disappearing during guided meditations. It feels different from drifting off to sleep, although I do feel gently lulled by the sound of the guiding voice. What seems to happen is that as I relax and sink into the stillness, awareness gradually falls away until nothing perceptible is present. I am no longer here. I don't know how long this state could last, but I do return instantly if there's any change in the voice or the meditation is brought to a close. I only realize afterwards that I've been absent. This has been my experience for years. I always suspected that I was doing something wrong, but never before had the courage or confidence to ask about it. So let me start by saying well done on having the courage to write in. And secondly, let me say that you're not doing anything wrong at all. That's it was also my experience. And I used to I used to spend my whole day waiting to disappear for 20 minutes or whatever I had. My whole day as a separate being, angry and fearful and feeling all the things that a separate being feels, and then waiting for my 20 minutes or whatever I could squeeze in, hour, if I was lucky, of meditation where I could just disappear. And for a long time, that was enough. That was enough for me, just to disappear or seem so. And at some point something shifted, and I'm guessing this is where your question's coming from, or where this is coming from. At some point it was no longer enough. It was such a wrench to come out of it. I mean, if we're in a guided meditation here in Satsang, we come out of it gently and slowly, and we try to or at least I try to bring us out of it quite gently, bring it to a close. You know, we could just go like, time's up, we're off, see. But it wouldn't be so good. But even gently coming out of it became such a I didn't want to come out of it at all. I really didn't want to come out of it. And in fact, almost the effects of this deep quietness and peace, they carried less and less throughout the day, because I was just kind of grumpy that I even had to come out of it or come back. And my life was pretty my life wasn't very good at that point. Just trying to think of a polite word to say. So coming out of that back into my life as I thought it was at the time, as a separate being, was a real wrench. Didn't want to. So I started to really want to know what this place was. Where did I disappear to? And what was really going on in those moments? And more to the point, how do I stay there? You know, how do I walk around like this, feeling that way? And how do I extend that? As you said, you don't know how long it can go on for. Sometimes it would be as little as 10 minutes, sometimes as much as a couple of hours, depending on how long I had to meditate. And I started to realize a couple of things. I started to realize that it felt like I was disappearing. For that time, I was gone. You've said here, I am no longer here. Awareness gradually falls away until nothing perceptible is present. The perceptible what we perceive is absent, seemingly, in that state. The egoic sense of self, and I use the word state very loosely, I don't have a better word. So in that moment, I'm sinking into meditation and time, awareness of my body, my mind, my emotions just seems to vanish. And even awareness of time, change. I'm not hearing anything that anyone's saying. I'm just seemingly absent. The perceptible me is absent in that moment. But then it has to come back again. So I feel like I've gone, like in deep sleep, and then I feel like I'm back in the morning. I feel like I've gone in meditation and I'm back. And there are subtle differences, of course, to the difference between this that's happening in meditation and deep sleep. So I only realized afterwards that I have been absent. Actually, that's not really true. If we look at the mechanics of it, you say everything perceptible is gone, but the perceiving, the perceiver is still present. You can tell me, you can't speak because you lose awareness of the body in that state. But nonetheless, you still know. Something is still here and knows. For that 20 minutes, there was no time, there was no duality, there was no ego, there was no world, there was no sense perception, there was nothing, just all gone. So one version of me is still here to know. It can't use the mouth and the body to articulate or the hands to type this message until later, when awareness of the body seems to return. But it still knows, just like it knows in deep sleep. There is absolutely no time, no duality, nothing other than awareness, knowingness, consciousness. And it feels really, really nice, doesn't it? So I come back seemingly and I feel all, you know, and then a lot that lasts for as long as it lasts. Throughout until someone says something that upsets me or pushes a button or something happens or I don't have enough of this or too much of that fear or something, and then it seems to be gone. So how can we feel that way all the time, even when our eyes are open, even when our senses are perceiving? So the me that's disappearing is who we think we are in that moment. So the thoughts, emotions, the sense perception, the body, all of that, the self in that moment is going, you know what, I'm just taking a break from duality right now. I'm just going to hang out in my non-dual self. And all the perceptible self seems to be gone for that moment. So can we feel the same when the perceptible self is here right now as we're listening, senses are perceiving, eyes are watching the image on the screen, your mind might be thinking about what's being said. Can we feel that same way? Do we have to have the absence of the seeming separate someone to feel that way? What is it that's really causing us to feel that deep rest in meditation like that then? Is it the absence of the separate someone? It doesn't exist anyway. It isn't a real entity, but it seems to be here while there's a body and the senses are perceiving, mind is thinking, emotions are being felt. That gives the illusion of a someone. And that's what disappears. This seems to be me, disappears during this deep meditation. Is it the disappearance of that brings this deep peace and even bliss? Because if you really slow down and feel, as you're sinking into that stillness, or as stillness is all that remains, and the movement seems to diminish and disappear. The body's still, the mind's still, the senses still perceiving, but nobody's paying attention to them. Then still there's this deep bliss that comes in that moment. You can also catch it right before you fall asleep at night. If you really pay attention, right as you're just about to go, lay down on the pillow and everything's slowing down and you can feel sleep's about to come over you. And if you really pay attention in that moment, there's this deep, deep bliss. And in the end, I figured out that it's not because the separate self is absent in that time. It's because in that time, I'm not trying to decide who I am. I'm not trying to get rid of the separate self and leave only the real self. I'm also not trying to get rid of anything. We could say, well, there's nothing to get rid of in that state, but can we bring that back into when our eyes open and we begin moving around again? If we stop trying to change anything in this moment, we'll experience that same feeling as in deep, deep meditation, deep. And it's possible to walk around like that, the body walk around it and have a conversation, drive a car, go to work, and still feel that we're not trying to change the real self, the awareness. It's just watching, isn't it? What we're aware of seems to fade away in this particular state. But if you notice how the awareness is, the real self, it doesn't really matter to the awareness whether the egoic sense of self is here doing its thing or seemingly absent, like in deep sleep or in this meditation. So what's happening here is the me that I think I am, just for a moment, I stop pushing it away and holding it away. And that's what this sinking into the stillness, the silence is. Gradually, as we see this, the identity, who I really know myself to be, is shifting over from this seeming separate someone to the self that is always watching. Sometimes it's watching the ego, the body, the emotions, relationships, karmic patterns, whatever it's watching. And sometimes there's nothing at all for it to watch. So when there's nothing at all for it to watch in deep sleep or in this deep meditation, seems like you've disappeared. But have you really? To have this, it might even be a bit frightening at first to even begin to contemplate that you might be able to walk around like this. And I'm not talking about walking around with your eyes closed but just with your eyes open and the senses functioning, the mind thinking, and you're not trying to change anything at all. Total self-acceptance in that moment. That part of you that's constantly rejecting what is has just gone to sleep for a moment. And that's why the meditation is so beautiful. So do we need that to stay absent? Do we have to go back into suffering when it reappears, when our eyes open, when our timer goes off at the end of meditation, or satsang finishes, or we wake up in the morning? The waking state wakes up in the morning. When the mind begins to think again, does it automatically have to lead to suffering? What's actually happening here is something very right is happening. It's exactly the same. I began to notice as it happened more and more and more, there's something that remains constantly. And it's always there and it always knows. Sometimes it knows there's lots to see, like now, through the senses and the mind. And then later, it'll just be watching the body sleep. It just knows there's nothing to, it might watch a dream run through the mind in the night during the body's sleep. Then it might watch nothing at all, no thing at all in deep sleep. So when this separate sense of self comes back, seemingly, you can just, if you can notice that some part of you is still here. And that same part of you was using the body to write this question, hasn't ever gone. Just noticing that part of you that's still here, even then, something knows. There was no sense perception. There was no time, no change, nothing, all gone. And then now they're all back again. But the same self is watching the absence of phenomena and the presence of phenomena, waking state, dreaming, sleep, absence of phenomena, waking state, presence of phenomena, sleep, absence, presence, absence, present. It's watching these cycles rotate in front of it. So can you just be that which is watching? Well, you already are. It's only this idea that there's two versions of you, really, and that you've got to get rid of one of them. And that's why we experience this in meditation. I'm spending a bit of time with this question because it really took me a good couple of years to get to the bottom of what was going on here. And I'd like to try to shortcut that. I thought that I had to get rid of this separate sense of self, that the peace and bliss and joy that came in meditation in those moments was because the separate sense of self was absent. And it really wasn't. It was simply because I wasn't pushing against anything. There was nothing to push against. So it was just blissful. And if you catch yourself coming out of it, so to speak, and going into it, you'll notice this deep quiet, this quietness, this absolute stillness. Maybe a real deep sense of peace and even bliss. And the pain, so to speak, not physical pain, but spiritual pain of having to come back out of it was enough to push me to question, do I have to come back out of it? Did I even go into it? Did anything happen to me in that moment during meditation? Has anything changed for me? I'm watching and there's nothing to watch and it's beautiful. And I can just simply watch when there's something to watch and it's still beautiful. So nothing going wrong at all. You're still here, even in deep meditation, even in deep sleep. If you're in bed at night and you're in a deep, deep sleep and your smoke alarm went off, or you had to use the bathroom, or your alarm went off in the morning, something is still listening, not particularly paying attention to the senses, really can't be bothered. Taking a break from the senses and the body and letting them rest too. But something's still there. What wakes you up in the nighttime if you need to use the bathroom? You slept on somewhere and some part of your arm's gone numb. Something knows and wakes you up and urges you to shift position. Something is hearing, even in deep meditation. If your timer goes off, you set a timer, I've got to be at work in an hour, so let me set a timer so I don't go over on my meditation. Something hears the alarm go off the timer, doesn't it? There's always something there that knows. So see if you're really disappearing, or if something that you're watching is disappearing, and then you'll feel the same, no matter what's going on in the mind and the body and the senses and all of that. So hope that helps. You're right on track. Let's see if we can move it along faster. This one says, first, I want to thank you for doing the work that you're doing. I love listening to your wisdom, which gets delivered in such a calming way. Often when I can't sleep at night, I listen to one of your satsangs and then sleep safely and sound. Everybody says, when I can't sleep, I always listen to you. I am put everyone back to sleep. Yeah. I'm writing to you because there is one theme which strongly comes up again and again, and I suffer tremendously from it. I'm turning 30 this year, and the first signs of aging have occurred. I've started to fixate solely on my wrinkles in my face, which lead to strong anxiety reactions, thoughts and feelings about it. I tried several times to meet this intense fear and self-hatred, which comes up when thinking about looking older or seeing my face in the mirror. But the resistance is so strong at times that it literally feels like I'm going to die. I so strongly believe that no one finds me attractive with my wrinkles, and hence the fear that I will always feel ugly, even if I meet someone who likes the way I look. It feels so enormous and keeps me from functioning normally in my daily life. This has been going on for over a year now, and I feel very helpless as I can't seem to be able to meet myself when this is going on. It is in the back of my mind all the time, but often it gets so extreme that it feels like I'm paralyzed by the fear. I'm crying while I'm writing this to you, and at the same time, acting on thoughts which tell me that if I'll get more wrinkles when contracting my muscles when crying, so I can't cry. It feels also shameful to say this out loud to others, as this can be labeled as superficial, But right now it's taken over my sanity, and that's why I'm wanting to reach out to you. Lots of love. So let me start by saying again, well done for writing in. Not easy to do when it feels like, when it's something that there's shame around, it's not easy to do, is it? So secondly, it's not superficial, is it? It's, we have absolutely no control over where our karmic patterns lie. So some people, everyone will experience fear about something, and it'll come from some area of our life, and we have absolutely no control over that. Our karmic patterns lie where they lie, whether it's our relationships or our body or our finances or our parents, our career, whatever it is, and we have no control over that. So the first thing you can do, if you would, for me, is just to let go of labeling this as superficial. You use that word. It doesn't seem superficial to me. If it's something that's taken over your sanity, boy, have I been there, you know. I remember the very first moment you're awake, your mind is obsessing about it to the very last moment. You wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, immediately mind starts again, doesn't it? And there's just no respite from it. So I get it, and I remember it, and it's pretty. Some of those moments at 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning are some of the loneliest times ever, aren't they? When everyone else is asleep and you feel like you're the only one awake and your mind is doing that thing it does. So, so you've mentioned several negative emotions here. You've said fear, you've said self-hatred, you've said shame, helplessness. So I'd like to suggest a different way to approach this. I would like to ask you to gently question. Your mind is saying, if you allow these emotions and cry, you're going to get more wrinkles on your face. It's going to make things even worse, and that you need to look as good as you can physically in order to be loved and accepted. I'm guessing you probably put your own words to that, but I had something similar. If I put weight on, or if I start to age, or any other things, people aren't going to like me or love me, and I won't be ultimately safe. I won't get their approval. I won't be accepted. And it comes from this very primitive part of our brain that is obsessed with our appearance, because that really equals safety to an animal, an animal, or even plants. They have some kind of basic camouflage to make themselves feel safer. Hiding from predators, but also the other side of that is looking more attractive to a potential mate. So it's kind of in our DNA, isn't it, that we have to look as good as we possibly can to ensure our survival. So no wonder it's a big thing. And our society, unfortunately, doesn't value aging and wisdom that comes with age, and the beautiful changes that happen to the human body over time. So mind is saying here that if you feel these emotions, you're going to make it worse. Yeah. So if you feel these emotions, you're going to make the signs of aging worse. What if it's the other way around? Okay. What if you don't feel these emotions, your body's going to have to keep showing you, telling you? What if the amount of aging that's showing on your face or your whole body is absolutely nothing to do with the physical process of releasing these emotions? What if that is only a reflection of how powerless you feel over this situation? Can you see that if you step back for a moment, if somebody else had written this and sent this in, could you notice, if you were just imagining somebody else had sent this in, that this person that's writing feels so powerless? You've used the word powerless here. You've even said, it gets so extreme, I feel paralyzed by the fear. So underneath all of this, the only thing that's holding it all in place, the major thing, 99% of it, is a feeling. It's not even about your body actually or aging. It's not even about the fear or self-hatred or shame. Underneath this, right at the bottom, the main anchor for this whole thing is the belief that you are powerless over this thing, that you are a separate someone at the mercy of the mind and the emotions, rather than being the wellspring of the self from which the mind emerges, and the emotions and even the body itself emerges from that. So instead of looking at the fear, which seems too big at the moment, perhaps, or even the other emotions, first of all, I would start with this. Am I actually powerless over this? Yes, your experience has told you that you're powerless over this. No matter what I try to do, I can't even begin to look at it because it's so full on, so intense. But if you can step back a moment and ask yourself, as the infinite self, the one being, the supreme self that's everywhere, even if that's only intellectually here for now, can you be powerless over this? Can you be powerless over anything as the self? So if you feel powerless over something, then you have to, on some level, subconsciously sabotage your attempt to, of course not knowingly, to sabotage your attempt to transcend it. So this fear comes and it's so big that it just feels like it's going to wash me away, and I'll be just gone in this tsunami of fear. And I remember that feeling very well. So let's start with the first bit, which is, am I really powerless over this? Staying with that question, like, even though your mind says, of course, you're powerless over, the body's going to age no matter what you do. Deteriorate, rather. It's going to age. Everybody's body ages, but it doesn't need to deteriorate through that process. And emotions are going to come and overwhelm me no matter what I do. This karmic pattern, I've been trying for so long to get rid of it. I feel utterly powerless over it. That's where I would start questioning if I were you, to see. So as you start to begin to shift, you're actually beginning to address this then from the infinite self as the infinite self, where this is something that you created accidentally, these thoughts, these emotions, like we all do, and then you won't feel so hopeless and helpless around it. You start to get a sense of confidence back. Don't even try to tackle the emotions right now until you get this deeper sense of feeling a little bit more empowered around it. So it'll start with little thoughts like, well, maybe I can get past this one day. Maybe somehow I'll figure a way through this in the end. And then those thoughts will get more and more in the present tense. Maybe I can look at this from a different way and it'll be easier. Right now it feels impossible. And that's actually the karmic pattern. There's nothing impossible for the infinite self. Everything is impossible for the separate sense of someone. And that's where this has come up to force you to shift to a different perspective, because you cannot solve this as a separate someone. You've tried, doesn't work. It's overwhelming with emotion. Because these ideas feel true. I'm going to grow old. I'm going to die. Those feel true from that separate someone, don't they? From the self, the infinite self, they are just thoughts and emotional frequencies, albeit intense, but there is no person. They just wash through the body then, and they can begin to move back into peace. So start with that. Really, really, with the curiosity. See if you're actually powerless over this, and stay with that until you begin to feel differently about it. Don't stop at anything your mind says. Your mind will say, yep, you're absolutely, utterly powerless. It'll also eventually tell you, yeah, you got this one, it's easy. But if I were you, I wouldn't stop with this question until the whole thing has just disappeared. You don't even think about the body aging in that way anymore. You cry when you need to, and you laugh when you need to and want to. And, ultimately, you look in the mirror and all you feel is love and a respect for the beautiful way the body is changing as the seeming years go past. So I hope that helps. Something has probably already shifted in you because you sent this in anyway. It's already starting, isn't it? So, okay, we'll go to one more and then I'll see if there's any questions. If you want to ask something, please feel free to put your hand up. I'll come to you next. Hi, Helen. Thank you so much for your guidance. Previously asked for some help. Read the belief that I have that I need to do more to help others. It was specifically about my brother going through a lot of suffering. As suggested, I pondered that belief, and I'm happy to report that it's thinning. That's very, very good. I realize how much the belief that this body and mind should be more than it is in the moment has impacted every aspect of my life. How it looks, walks, talks, everything that it appears to be should be more or different somehow. And that its very existence is wrong, a continual conundrum. Life is beginning to feel more and more liberated, and I've noticed a sneaky belief surfacing. It feels like, don't completely let go. Don't enjoy it too much. I remember this one. It'll cause something bad to happen. It's like a fear of complete liberation or something, that maybe it's safer to have one part in constant review and analysis of life. It's tricky to decipher and articulate it. I think you did a good job, really. I'd love your insights about this one. Lots of love always. So isn't it shocking when you see how much this I should be more, when it's just been like running your entire life, how I am in my relationships, why I even started this pathway to awakening, to be more than I am, so that I'm safer, so that God will actually love me if I can improve myself. Of course, this isn't a conscious thought. It's going on right in the core of the ego that's really terrified of the divine and sees it as this kind of God that, self that needs to be appeased or pleased or something like that. And if we can somehow get ourselves to be up to where we think we should be, then we'll finally be loved and approved of and all of that stuff. And I'll finally be able to go home back to the self, it's this ego. All the while, the self's just lovingly watching, going, there, it's okay. You'll figure it out eventually. And when I saw this, just how much of this, it was everywhere in my life. Everywhere. When you buy someone a birthday gift, you're second guessing yourself. They're not going to like it. I should have got something different. When you write the card, I shouldn't have put that. I should have put something different. The way you dress, the way you walk, as you said, how much you weigh, what you do for a living, how much money you've got, how many friends you've got, whether you like your friends, whether they like you. It's just every single place. And most importantly, of course, if I can finally get awakened, then I'll be enough, right? Then I'll be good enough. Then I'll be someone. Then I'll be special. My ego. I'll be special, said my ego. And it was absolutely gutted to find out awakening doesn't make you special at all. It makes you very ordinary in a way. So it took me a while to get over the shock of that, and I can see, that you can see that in what you've written here too. And then as you start to get clear of that, you realize that all of the things we've been doing, including our meditation, our inquiry, our contemplation, attending satsang, everything has been about this, trying to improve myself, this DIY project that is the me. You know, it's got to be bigger and better, and you know, that Helen 2.0 or something like that, and then 10.0, because that's not good enough. And then, you know, this endless improvement, self-improvement thing. And of course, there are things we want to change about our lives. We want to maybe be kinder or more compassionate, but we don't have to do that from this should. Okay, where I'm at is the best place I can be right now, and I'd like to allow more compassion or something. Because you start to get clear of that enormous drag on your energy, because all of this motivation, all this time and efforting from the mind is trying to figure out how to make you more than you are, how to actually reach this imagined future place where you're good enough. As you start to step away from that, there's this, but then you know, after a short time, exactly what you said here. Okay, life's starting to get quite good now, starting to feel quite peaceful most of the time, feeling a little bit of joy, maybe deeper sense of love, maybe even some bliss coming. And something says, yeah, but don't let go completely. You know, don't let go completely, because if you do, and God comes knocking on the door, you won't know whether you're up to the job, where you're going to be accepted and all of that. For me, it was just this very sneaky, something kept trying to make a problem or something to work on, you know, let go of all the karmic patterns, and it would reinvent some other thing that I thought I'd let go of years ago. It would bring something else up, and I always had to have something to work on. This idea that if I'm not in constant review, I like the way you put that, and analysis of life, then I'll be in trouble. And it all comes from this idea that you're not already perfect as you are right now, right? That sense, that deeply held sense of, I've got to keep checking just in case something goes wrong, because something could go wrong with me, you know, something like that. A deep, deep sense inside. But if you look at that, is this constant review and analysis and this constant urge for self-improvement, has that really ever worked to improve you anyway? Has criticizing, judging, blaming yourself ever really brought about the positive changes that our egoic sense of self is trying to achieve? Or were they just going to happen anyway? Like your whole life is moving towards more abundance, more peace, more joy, more compassion, more wisdom, more energy, more vitality, deeper relationships, all of it, right? What if that's just happening anyway, and all this trying to make that happen is just actually slowing it down? Maybe that's a function then of realizing who you really are, that this constant review, it falls away, this urge to constantly be double checking if I'm okay, you know, something like that, isn't it? Because complete liberation, there's really nothing to work on. Things get worked on, amazingly. The body and mind keep refining all by themselves right in front of you. But we're just kind of honest enough then to say, well, I've never actually been doing that. It just seemed to happen in front of me. And then as I let go of this idea that I need to hold myself in check, not go too deep. But you can't actually, and my mind even believed, you might have this too, that you can't actually stay alive as a human being without your mind working constantly. That's what's sustaining my existence. And if my mind goes quiet, I'll die. And that was a real fear for quite some time. So it's safer, as you said here, to have some problem going on, something to work on. It's very, very common, and it's very sneaky, but nonetheless very painful in the end. So just looking at that and saying, is that really actually am I actually safer, better, all of that, by this constant review analysis that's going on? Mind doesn't really know what's going on anyway. I mean, it's like one of those TV commentators that's just talking over the football game that's happening anyway, talking about what's going on, and what's going on is going on anyway. And so it doesn't really have an informed opinion. It has plenty of opinions, but no informed opinions. Not through any fault of its own, but this constant review is no longer necessary because you're safe. You've always been safe. You've always been good enough. Whatever arises out of the perfection of the self has to be made of that same perfection. Can't be anything other. Perfection evolving into even more perfection. Everything's absolutely fine as it is now with your mind and body. And it's also moving into ever more sattvic, subtle, harmonious expression of your mind and body. But not from, I'm not good enough, to I'm finally getting better. From, I'm absolutely divine in origin, still am, and I'm still divine in origin, still. So paradox of the mind, but makes sense to the self. Hope that helps. Okay, we'll go to Lofter. Always an interesting conversation.
Hello.
Hi.
I have three things: some good news, some bad news, and a question.
Okay.
And I'll start with the good news. The good news is that when you talk about the self, I finally know what you mean.
Yes, always good news.
This word used to annoy me so much.
Yeah. You know, we used to listen to teachers and they say it's all around you right now. And you're like, where? You know. Sorry, carry on.
So that's the good news, and it's nice. It's really nice to when I'm meditating, for example, then I can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a nice place to stay in.
Good.
So that's the good news. The bad news is that it's still something different from me. Yeah, there's me, and there's the self there which I'm bathing in, or so to speak.
Yeah.
No. And so my question is, it's a nonsensical question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because this is how I feel. How to be the self? Or when will I be the self?
So let's start from what you said there. There's me and it, right? There seems to be a me and the self, and I can be in it, merge with it, join with it for a certain amount of time, and then I'm kicked back out again, right? And there's definitely two of us. There's two of us here, shared occupancy of this body. So what evidence do you have that there's a you and it? What can you tell me? Why are you convinced that there's a you and it? It feels like there's a you and it, you and the self. I know it's a really strange question, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Can you ask it again, please?
Yeah. So there seems to be you, the separate being, and there seems to be the great self, right? How are you, and why are you so convinced that the separate someone is here? Does that hit you better, or I can go a different way?
Yeah. It's because of the sensations in my body. I think it's like because I can feel my body, then that means I'm here and the self is out there somehow. I think that's what it is.
So where is the separate me then?
In those sensations.
Just the sensations? Let's really look, right? Because if we just assume it's here, then it takes on a life that it doesn't really have. It runs on belief power. So let's really look. Where is
Yes.
that someone that's trying to merge into the self? Can you pin it down?
Well, I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's right there, just just out of reach somehow.
Just out of reach. Really look at that. Like, is it actually out of reach? Can you actually find it? This is so important. This is like the most important thing we could be doing right now in this moment. Can you actually find it?
No, but it seems to be there.
Seems to be. What is it that gives you, what is it that makes you say it seems to be there? Is it a feeling? Is it sensations? Is it, why are you saying it seems to be there? What's the evidence?
It's a feeling.
A feeling, yeah.
Yes.
So this seems to be someone here. And the self,
Yes.
it seems to be. But when we actually look, there isn't. Can't find it. Let's look again, you and me. Can you actually find this seeming someone?
No.
So there isn't actually a separate being, but there seems to be. So if we come to see clear enough and again and again and again that you cannot actually find the someone when you actually look, that it only seems to be here, then the seemingness of it will still remain. For me right now, having this conversation, it still seems like there's someone here that has not gone. It goes when the body goes, right? It's a function of the senses perceiving, mind thinking, sensations in the body. All of that comes together, a sense of experiencing. It gives the sense that someone's here, but there isn't actually anyone living in this body. There's only the infinite self. So when you really get this, you don't push against the seems to be. You don't try to make that go away. It's like a shadow. You can't make the shadow go away, can you? It's going to follow you everywhere you go. All you can do is come to see there isn't actually two of me. There's only the self. When I actually look experientially, directly, like we just did, can't actually find that someone. There's someone that seems to say, yeah, but there's me and it. Does it actually exist, that someone?
Well, I have looked for it and I haven't found it, but I have this very strong belief that it must be there. It has to be.
And that strong belief that it has to be there is what makes it seem so real, because you are the infinitely powerful self. Anything that you give your allegiance to, you're going to experience. It's really strong. You make this whole three-dimensional hallucination happen. Real time, 24/7. I really feel like a someone. And then we really experience that as if it's true. And even I spent the best part of 3 years trying to get rid of this separate someone or make it merge into the self. And I finally realized you can't make it go away when it's not actually there. It just seems to be. Perhaps all this effort to try to make it go away is actually what makes it seem real. So if I know deep enough, if that's gone deep enough that there isn't actually someone here, then this seems to be of it won't affect me, won't trouble me. And maybe it's even a good thing that this seems to be. It's like a software program for the body, helps the body do what it needs to do. Like a software program for your computer. Not actually a real thing, just a useful program made of thoughts and emotions and sense perception and sensations. Look with me again now. Can you find someone that needs to merge into the self?
No, I don't even know where to look for it.
Search your body, search your being, search your mind, search your emotions, wherever you want to look. Search everywhere. Let's search everywhere. Can you find someone, a separate being, separate to everyone else around? Something is here that is you, but is it a separate someone? If you and I were sat together in that room there, and we were 6 feet apart, would there be a division 3 feet halfway across the room where you stop and I start?
Well, if you put it this way, then of course not.
But even if we were sat there together, 2 bodies in that same room, it might still seem like there's 2 of us in that room. It may always seem like there's 2 of us in that room. Does that have to get in the way of this deepening that's going on? It's confirming, experiencing directly, I cannot find this someone that I'm so desperately trying to get rid of. I cannot find it. Is it just gone when you look, or has it ever been here? Does the separate someone run away? Oh God, he's going to do self-inquiry. Quick, let's leg it, And then after you finish that time, he comes running back, Well, that was a close one.
I think I've always just assumed it was there. And
Yeah.
I guess there's this assumption that's I don't even know why I assume it.
Because everyone else says, right? It's just taken for granted. Everyone's walking around talking to somebody. And we all talk to each other as if we're somebody. And the whole thing runs on assumption. You are so powerful as the infinite self that anything you assume to be true, for so long, it seems so real that we don't even feel, we feel, for a long time, if I'd said, look and see if there's actually someone there, you'd be like, are you crazy? It's only when that assumption becomes so out of control, it's taken on a life of its own, and it's got all of these problems that we can never fix. That's the only time we'll start to even doubt the existence of it. And it was such a shock to me to find out it's not actually there. Like the whole main character of my life and my awakening, the star of the show, was a figment of my imagination. Quite bizarre, isn't it?
Yes, very bizarre. I've heard you and many other teachers talking about this, that we can't actually find it, and somehow what to say, it's like yes, okay, so I went and searched for it. I've been searching for it for a few weeks now, but I still, this whole time while I was searching, I still assumed that it was there somehow. I'm still I guess I have to admit it now, that I'm still convinced that it's just right there beneath the surface.
Yeah. So just taking it a little deeper now, you've looked, you can't find it. And that's why I was asking, has it ever been there? Has it ever actually been there? And if it's not here right now, I had to begin to look. If it's not here now when I look for it, and I looked again and again and again, and I literally did this about 100 times each day for a week. And it was just, I'm not saying you have to do that. Of course, you can if you want to, but every single time I looked, it was absent, gone. Not even gone, because gone suggests it was there and it disappeared. Just, there's nobody there. And that was just shocking and shocking and shocking. And then it began to settle into, well, it's never been there. What if I've made up my whole existence, like my whole story of someone? And at that point, it was just like somebody pulled the rug out from underneath me, and I didn't have anywhere to stand. I couldn't even go back to my old stories and be convinced of them, because I'd seen too deeply. And there was just this kind of shock for a while. This real kind of, oh my God, I've made the whole thing up. Most especially my journey to awakening, you know. But it does begin to broaden. If it's not here now, has it ever been? Will it ever be the separate being, the someone? And in that, then there's this kind of relaxation. There's only awakening. That's all that's ever been here, the self. The self is so powerful that whatever idea it looks through, it experiences that as so real for millennia. The bodies come and go, and it imagines itself to be a someone, and it gets fascinated with phenomena. Thoughts, my thoughts, then it says, my mind. And the illusion sustains itself, recreates itself, doesn't it? It keeps going. So real, seemingly, that we wouldn't even think to even look and check. All this energy goes to my problems, and never to actually look at the me that's having those problems, until it gets so bad. We all end up in satsang, you know. Just letting that sink in. What does it mean if it's not here right now, the separate being? What does that really mean? Has it ever been here?
Yeah. When you ask that question, what does it mean if it's not here? Then my mind immediately says, oh, that's just because you haven't searched intensely enough. You're going to find it,
Yeah.
but you just have to search a little more, and then you'll get there somehow.
Well, have at it every which way you can. Prove to yourself every which way you can. I found a body, I found sensations, I found sense perception, thoughts, emotions. Never found anyone to whom they belong. Memories, desires, dreams, again with no author, no owner. They were just floating around in the ether. Really quite bizarre. Quite a big shock at first, but such a relief, because then I was free already, and always had been. So maybe your mind's saying, you know, you just haven't looked hard enough. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe you can just look and look and look and look, and keep not finding, and keep not finding, and keep not finding. That's how it was for me. And it began to shift something inside. It's not here. Every time I look, should be able to find it if it's here.
It needs a lot of convincing, this thing.
Yes. Yes and no. Yes, because we have to look and look again, but no, because every time we look and don't find it, we can't quite go back to it 100%. Something, even just in the times that we've looked here together, something has shifted. You can't quite believe in it as much as you did before you looked. Every time you look and don't find it, it's kind of shifting your identity over to there's never been any separate being. As shocking as that is, it also means that all of my karmic patterns have gone, never existed. All of my problems. Mine goes, you know, it can't be quite that easy. So you're still going to have a problem or something, you know. Just keep looking and keep not finding, and something inside is just softening and shifting as you search again, and it's still not there, this separate someone. Yes, there's a body, we're not negating that. There's emotions, there's thoughts, sense perception. But is there anybody to whom they belong, you know? And something quite profound begins to happen as you look and don't find. It's the only thing in human experience where Not finding anything is the right answer, right? It's the best answer. Is something changing now as we're talking in your body?
Yes, I don't know what exactly, but it's nice.
Because the great burden that's been upon us all, I have to reach awakening. My responsibility, me. I might get it wrong. I have to make sure my bills are paid. I have to, raise my children, all of that. The self has always been doing that, right, through the body. Never been our responsibility as a separate someone. And you start to get a taste of what life is like without that heavy sense of someone doing, you've got to do, what do I do? And this final goal that we all want as a human being, which is to awaken to our true nature. With this separate someone in charge of that, I might screw it up. I might get it wrong. But if it's only the self coming to recognize itself, what could go wrong? That was enormously reassuring to me. Can't mess my awakening up. Just sitting with it, yeah. Just staying with it, looking and looking and looking. Becomes quite a nice thing to do just in itself. Start to feel very peaceful. Good. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Not so bad news then, really.
Say again?
Not such bad news, really.
Yeah.
Turned into something good.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good to
Thank
talk to you. Okay, so we will leave it there for tonight. That seems like a good place to to leave satsang today. Maybe you get the sense of whatever question anyone sends in, whatever challenge they're having, whatever they ask on the session. I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, tried to get past it, failed, tried, failed, found another way around. And it would be the same for anyone, any awakened being, because the steps to, there aren't really steps, but the stages, the steps, whatever, to realizing what you really are pretty much the same for all of us. And that hopefully gives reassurance that even though it might show up in a different way in our lives, we're all going through the same process. And just because what is happening to you, where you're stuck at, it's not something you're doing wrong. It is just the next thing that you need to see through this idea. And then there's deeper sense of freedom that's already here, deeper sense of it. So if it seems like it's going wrong, it's right on track. Namaste.